Try this. Name a place you could go tonight alone without telling anyone you were coming, where someone would recognize you and where staying 2 hours cost you nothing. Not a friend's house, not work. A place that belongs to nobody and to everybody. Most adults, asked that question, come up with nothing. Not because they're unusual, because that kind of place has quietly been priced out of ordinary life. The reason is not the one you've heard. The buildings did not vanish, something else did. There's a name for what's missing. In 1989, a sociologist called Ray Oldenburg published a book called The Great Good Place, and gave the thing a label that has since escaped into ordinary speech. The first place is home. The second place is work. The third place is everything else. The cafe, the barbershop, the pub, the stoop, the square. His definition is worth hearing exactly, because the wording is doing a lot of work. Third places, he wrote, host the regular, voluntary, informal, and happily anticipated gatherings of individuals beyond the realms of home and work. Oldenburg listed 8 characteristics. 3 of them decide whether a place is really a third place or just a business you visit. It is neutral ground. Nobody is the host, nobody arrives as a guest, and you can leave whenever you like. It is a leveler. The job title you carry all week stops mattering at the door. And it has regulars, people whose being there is the reason it's worth going. Notice what is absent from that list. Nothing about coffee, nothing about beer. What the list describes is recognition, repeated often enough to become ordinary. Here is the question this film answers, and the answer is not the popular one. Everyone agrees the third place is in trouble. There are 1,000 essays about it. Almost nobody checks the obvious thing first. Did those places actually close, or are they still standing with the lights on and the chairs empty? Start with what is certain. In 2024, sociologists published a study called Homebound, built on 2 decades of the American Time Use Survey, a government diary study where people record, hour by hour, what they actually did. Between 2003 and 2022, the average American adult came to spend 1 hour and 39 minutes more of every day at home. That is not a rounding error, it rose for every group they measured and across nearly every activity. It was already rising long before anyone had heard the word lockdown. The same diaries show where those hours went missing from. Time spent socializing face-to-face has been falling for 20 years, from roughly 45 minutes a day to roughly 35, depending on how strictly you define socializing. The fall is steepest among the youngest adults, the group with the fewest obligations and the most spare evenings. Half an hour a day sounds survivable. Over a year, it is the difference between knowing a dozen people casually and knowing nobody outside the 2 rooms you already live in. Second, the standing appointment. For most of the 20th century, the largest recurring meeting in American life was a religious service. In 1999, 70% of Americans said they belonged to a church, a synagogue, or a mosque. By 2020, that was 47%, below half for the first time in 80 years of Gallup asking the question. Belief fell far less than that. What collapsed was membership. The weekly obligation to sit in a room with the same people whether or not you felt like it. Third, the one you have probably heard. Robert Putnam counted bowlers. Between 1980 and 1993, the number of Americans who bowled rose about 10%. League bowling fell about 40. The sport survived. The Tuesday night with the same 5 people did not. Putnam has serious critics, and they have a fair point. Some of his other figures come from a marketing lifestyle survey rather than a census, and civic life changes shape as much as it drains away. But the bowling counts are the cleanest thing he found, and they say something narrow and precise. The activity stayed, the standing arrangement went. 3 measurements, 1 direction. People are at home more, meeting less, and the recurring gatherings are thinning out. From there, almost everyone jumps to the same conclusion, and it feels obvious. The places must have closed. Sprawl ate the high street, the chains ate the diner, rent ate whatever was left. It's a good story, and the counts do not support it. One more figure, and it points somewhere unexpected. Over the same decades that people stopped going out, Putnam found they also stopped having each other in. Having friends over dropped by about 35%. Treat that number gently because it comes from a marketing lifestyle survey rather than an official count, and the sample is not a clean one. Take the direction though, and it rules out the easy explanation. If the problem were only that the venues had closed, hosting at home would have gone up to compensate. It went down as well. Whatever happened, happened to the habit, not just to the buildings. Count the places instead of describing the feeling, and the picture inverts. In the years before 2020, most categories of third place in America were not vanishing. Coffee shops were multiplying, restaurants too, and recreation centers. A few categories genuinely shrank, senior centers and barbershops among them. Most did not. Nobody keeps a clean national ledger of every third place, so treat that as a direction rather than a percentage. The direction is up, which leaves a strange situation, more places to sit and fewer people sitting. The clearest evidence for that comes from the company that turned Oldenburg's phrase into a business plan. Starbucks took the third place out of a sociology book and put it into investor decks. That was the offer, not coffee. A living room you didn't have to clean, with chairs, tables, a bathroom, and nobody hurrying you out of it. Then look at what actually happened inside those rooms. By 2024, across roughly 9,500 company-run American stores, more than 70% of sales were coming through the app or the drive-thru. 70%. The armchairs are still bolted to that floor. Most customers never see them. The building kept its promise. The habit of using it went away. The company noticed because it showed up in the sales figures. In 2025, Starbucks started an expensive reversal, reported at several $100 million, and by some accounts near $1 billion once closures and remodeling are counted in. What it is buying is this: softer seating, power outlets, ceramic mugs instead of paper cups, the condiment bar back in the room, a layout designed, in the company's own words, to slow customers down. A corporation is spending real money to make a shop harder to leave? That is the reframe, and it changes what the problem even is. The third place did not die. We stopped showing up. Once you say it that way, the question stops being why did they close and becomes something far more answerable. Why did showing up get so expensive? It does cost something now, and the cost is not the coffee. Go back to Oldenburg's list. One of his criteria was accessibility. A third place has to be somewhere you can reach without arranging it. That is the whole mechanism. A third place runs on the unplanned visit, the 20 minutes you did not schedule. Take that away and you can keep the building, the staff, and the chairs, and still lose the thing they were for. The first rule that takes it away is one most people have never read. American cities zone land by use, and a very large share of the land zoned for housing permits exactly one thing: a detached house. How large depends on where you stand and on how you count, around 15% of New York's. Roughly 94% of San Jose's. Across much of the country, it is not expensive to put a cafe where people sleep. It is illegal. The third place is legislated to the far side of a road. The second rule decides how far that side is. Most American towns require a business to supply its own parking. A typical Californian standard is 4 spaces for every 1,000 square feet of dining room. One parking space, with the aisle you need to reach it, takes 200 to 300 square feet. Run the arithmetic. The lot comes out as big as the restaurant, or bigger. Every building gets a moat. Donald Shoup, who spent a career on those codes, said the numbers in them are more like astrology than astronomy. Nobody derived them. They were copied from town to town. What they manufacture is distance. Distance is the wrong unit for what that costs you, though. The real unit is friction. An unplanned visit is a cheap impulse. You have 20 minutes, the place is on the way, you go. Put a car journey in front of it and the same impulse becomes an errand. Keys, traffic, a parking space, the drive home. The impulse never survives that conversion. It doesn't get refused. It gets quietly refiled as something to do properly at the weekend with people you would have to text first. Distance is not a small thing. It decides who your friends are. In 1950, 3 psychologists, Festinger, Schachter, and Back, studied a housing complex of married graduate students living in identical flats, and asked each of them to name their closest friends. The answers barely involved personality. They tracked the floor plan. People befriended whoever they happened to pass. The only residents with friends on another floor were the ones who lived beside the staircase. Identical people, identical rooms, and the position of a stairwell decided the friendships. They called it functional distance. Not how far apart you are, but how often the building makes you cross paths. Modern development is extremely good at raising functional distance while the map still looks close. 2 miles by car with nowhere to park is farther in every way that matters than 400 meters on foot. There is evidence the difference shows up in people. Residents of walkable, mixed-use neighborhoods report knowing more of their neighbors and trusting more of them. That finding is correlational, and sociable people may simply choose those streets, so hold it loosely. The mechanism underneath it is not in dispute. You befriend who you pass. Which is why a third place is not a luxury, it is infrastructure, and it produces things nobody planned. A recent working paper looked at what happened when a coffee shop opened in American neighborhoods that had none at all. Over the following 7 years, the rate at which new businesses were founded there rose by somewhere between 9 and 23% a year. It is a working paper rather than a settled result, and the range is wide. Sit with what it implies, though. Some of those companies exist because two people who would never otherwise have met kept ending up at the same counter. That is the part a scheduled social life cannot replicate. Your friends are a closed set, you already know what they know. The value of a third place is the stranger you would never have chosen, the one who happens to fix boilers, or who has read the thing you are stuck on, or who mentions a job 3 weeks before it is advertised. Sociologists have a dry name for those connections. Weak ties. In 2022, researchers tested them at enormous scale, randomizing the connections offered to 20 million people over 5 years and watching who ended up with new jobs. Weaker ties did move opportunity better than close ones, but not the weakest. The best returns came from the middle of the range, someone you would recognize and barely know. That is a precise description of a regular, and you cannot arrange one. You can only be somewhere often enough to acquire one. The fix, then. Not build a village. Not move to a walkable city because most people cannot. The 3 properties that made the old places work can be rebuilt at very small scale, and the research is unusually clear about what they are. Near, cheap, repeated, concretely. Pick one place inside a 10-minute walk of where you sleep. That distance is not decoration. It is the line between a decision and a habit. Make it somewhere you can stay without buying anything twice. Then go at the same hour every week and go alone. Alone is the hard instruction and the important one, because arriving with your own group means leaving with it. The first 3 visits will feel pointless. Around the 4th, somebody nods. That nod is the entire mechanism. Being a regular is not a personality, it is a schedule. 2 ways people get this wrong. The first is treating it as an experiment, going twice, feeling awkward, concluding it doesn't work. Recognition is a function of repetition, and 2 is not a repetition. The second is bringing a friend every time, which turns a public room into a private booth and makes you invisible to everyone else in it. If no place near you fits, be the place. A fixed hour, a table, an open invitation, and the discipline to sit there on the nights nobody comes. Hosting is only difficult until it is a routine. For nearly all of human history, nobody had to arrange any of this. The fire in the middle of camp was the third place. Nobody hosted it, nobody was invited, and you could not miss it because it sat on the way to everything else. We did not lose that because people got colder. We lost it because we built a world where every fire needs a plan. Put one on the calendar. Same place, same hour, next week. Name a place you could go tonight. Now you have one.